Hi, everyone. I hope this finds you well. This week's Parsha is Toldot. Toldot. We begin with the marriage of Yitzchak, Isaac, and Rivka, Rebecca. So the Parsha opens and says, and then Isaac married Rebecca, the daughter of Betuel from Padan Aram, the Aramean, the sister of Lavan, the Aramean. Okay, why we have Isaac and then one paragraph later, Rivka? Why all this background about Rivka and not Isaac? So Rashi, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, says that this emphasis of Rivka's family is to show how amazing it is that she's righteous. Okay, well, why would that be? Basically, we've learned that Rivka's father and brother were idolaters. They were immoral guys. They're not so great. And yet here we have Rivka marrying into like the first family of Judaism. Abraham and Sarah's son Yitzchak is her betrothed. Someone from a not so great family is marrying like the best family. It's interesting. So basically, Rashi says it's really impressive that Rivka grew up in a really not so great household and yet was still full of chesed, full of kindness and goodness. Later, though, he says, so yes, it's impressive that Rivka is great, even though she grew up in a bad situation. But Yitzchak being righteous is even more impressive. Okay, we literally just said that Rivka grew up in a really hard situation and yet she's still righteous and it's really impressive. So how is Isaac, who grows up in like paradise of kindness, being the child of Sarah and Abraham, how is it so impressive that he's righteous? So what Rashi says is that it would have been really easy for Yitzchak just to be just like Abraham. Abraham was known as being the chesed guy, the kindness guy. So Yitzchak could have just been like, okay, my dad was the kindness guy, so I'll be the kindness guy too. Except that we don't associate Yitzchak with the idea of kindness. We associate Yitzchak with the idea of Gevura. Gevura is like restraint, strength. It's different than Chesed. Chesed is like ever flowing, just like no barriers, nothing. And meanwhile, Gevura is like all barriers, all structure. It's a specific kind of goodness. So what Rashi is saying is that it's easy just to be like your parents, but to be different than your parents in a good way is even harder. So the point being made is that it's not that Rivka isn't as oppressive as Yitzchak. It's that any child who deviates from their parents in a different way is to be praised, whether it's for the good or for the bad. Because to be good, just like your parents, but in a different way, it's kind of difficult. It made me think about famous people. The thing that comes to mind for me is Ben Platt. If you guys know, Ben Platt was the star of Dear Evan Hansen, a musical on Broadway. He won the Tony Award at age like 23, which I'm 23. I'm upset. Why did I think about that? Ben Platt's father is an extremely successful producer, Mark Platt. Mark Platt produced Wicked, Rent, every Broadway show ever, like all these movies, La La Land, like everything. He is like the star of Hollywood. And yet Ben Platt became even more famous than his father, but it's his own talent that propelled him forward. It's hard. It's hard to be just as famous, or if not more famous than your parent, and be famous in a different way. So obviously that's not the most relatable thing in the world, but think about it. How are you similar to your parents? How have you taken on things that they've also shown you? And how are you different? How have you deviated from the ways? So like I said, we're talking about Rivka and Yitzchak. Rivka and Yitzchak, they finally have children after many, many, many years of barrenness. Rivka becomes pregnant with Yaakov and Esav, Jacob and Esau, famous siblings. So while Rivka is pregnant, inside of her, Jacob and Esau are already fighting. God gives her a prophecy that the older will serve the younger. And when they are born, Esav is born first and Yaakov is born second. So Rivka remembers this prophecy forever, and it really impacts the rest of her life. So the prophecy is saying that the younger will be the ruler over the older. So Yaakov and Esav grow up, they're similar. Esav is drawn to idolatry and immoral things, and Yaakov, he just wants to be learning in the tense of learning. He just wants to be a holy guy, a righteous guy. And it's not that they both were, born in a vacuum. They were both born from Yitzchak and Rivka, really, really righteous people. So how is it that Esav ends up being immoral and an idolater? Rambam, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, or Maimonides, says that it's because there are two ways of divine service. The first is to be like a divine holy soul that's righteous and good. All you want to do is good. And the second way is to be someone who has some difficulties, who has some evil inclination, yetzer hara, but still, even so, persists and fights it and is good. So basically, Yaakov is the holy good, like entirely good, righteous guy. And Esav is the one with the evil inclination that he has to overcome. We say that one who overcomes their evil inclination is even more impressive than one who's just naturally good. So, for example, if someone really loves to give tzedakah, to give charity, they're to be praised. Of course, it's a praiseworthy thing to do. But someone who doesn't like to give charity and still forces themselves to do because they know it's the right thing, they are to be praised even more. So if Esav would have been able to overcome his Yetzer Hara, his evil inclination, maybe he would have been more righteous than Yaakov. It's an interesting thing to think about. So we have Rivka and Yitzchak. Yitzchak grows up, he likes Esav better, and Rivka likes Yaakov better. So their whole life, they're kind of butting heads. They're just different kind of guys. And when Yitzchak is on his deathbed, Rivka overhears Yitzchak saying to Esav, "You're the oldest, so I'm going to give you my blessing, the birthright. I'm going to give it to you soon." So Rivka overhears this, and she remembers that prophecy that she heard from God when she was pregnant, that the older will serve the younger. So to her, she's like, Esav can't get the blessing. He's not the one that is supposed to be in charge. Yaakov is. So she hatches this plan. Very conniving, it seems, to trick Yitzchak into giving Yaakov the blessing instead. So they cover Yaakov in like fur, so he says hairy is Esav. They put him in his clothes, so he smells like Esav. They have him, do all these things so that Yitzchak is fooled. He's an old man. He's blind. He's not, it's not such a hard thing to do. But honestly, I wrote about this in my email. It seems like something out of like a 2000s comedy, like the kind of like madcap, like we'll cover you in fur and pretend that you're someone else. Like it's just very funny. So Rivka has this plan. Seems really conniving. And I always was like, Rivka, you were like such a great person. Like, why are you like this? And I read some commentary that it's just that she believed so fully in that prophecy that she was given, that Yaakov was meant to be the ruler over the two of them, that she did it. It wasn't that she's like this conniving evil person. She just really believed in the prophecy. And of course, it turns out that she is right. Yaakov is, we are the people of Israel. Yaakov's name changes to Israel next week in next week's Parsha. We are Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel. So clearly she was right, but it still seems very conniving and not so great. So after Yaakov gets the birthright, they succeed. This plan succeeds. Esav finds out that Yaakov has the birthright. He's like, Father, why can't you give me a blessing? And Yitzchak is like so distraught. He's like, oh, your brother Yaakov. Oh, gosh. Oh, so terrible. And then Esav is like, I'm going to kill you, Yaakov. And Rivka's like, Yaakov, you got to run. Go to Haran. Go to modern day Turkey, where my brother Lavan, who we learned about at the beginning of the Parsha, is, and go find a wife. So Yaakov, this is the end of the Parsha. Yaakov's running off to Haran. I picture him like with a backpack in the middle of the night, like looking behind him, like, is Esav there? It's so dramatic. But that's where we end off this week's Parsha. Think about it. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Shabbat Shalom. Thanks so much.